Everybody, this is Josh McKinney. I just want to welcome you to episode 113 of the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show. So today, voice is coming back. I was coaching at a tournament this week, and it got my voice a little bit. But you guys can understand me. You know it's the same guy. If you don't believe me, check YouTube. Always the same guy. It's me. I know my voice a little different. You'll live. The tournament was fun, though. I'll tell you a little bit about it when we get into the content. Also did a seminar this weekend for a new grip. It is a nonprofit that you guys should check out. They have a really, really cool mission where they help sex trafficking victims through Jiu Jitsu. And so I think a lot of people that listen to the show would be interested in helping out that organization. So again, that's called A New Grip. Be sure to check them out. But I did a seminar for them and was able to, because I had enough caffeine in me, I was pumped up enough, was able to verbalize some thoughts a little bit differently that sometimes I talk about on the podcast. And you guys will know what I'm talking about maybe on this episode. If you are a big podcast follower, if you're a big I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show listener. Wonder if there's anybody who has listened to every episode of the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show. If you have, send me a message. If you have listened to every episode, send me a message. I'll have some type of gifts for you. I'll also quiz you. I'm gonna ask you something. So don't be sending me a message if you haven't listened. But yeah, definitely send me a message. That would be really cool. I don't know if anyone has. I haven't. And there are a lot of episodes I've never listened to of the show, whether interviews or solo casts, because I lived it. I was there, you know? You don't look back like that. There have been episodes I've listened to a few different times. One of the episodes, I think I reposted it on YouTube just a little bit ago, but it is the episode I did with Huron. It was one of the first episodes I ever did, and it was such a fun episode. It really was just about a typical Huron Gracie thing. You know, you get this guy on to talk about jiu-jitsu training method, and he starts talking about being mindful and being intentional and being present. And it really was turned into obviously it turned into a great episode, and I expected that, but it was not the episode that I expected to get. And you guys should check that out. I'll make sure to link that on this description. But that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Just a little bit of a random rant. I hope you guys are doing great. As always, if you guys want to know anything about the podcast, if you have any questions about anything, you can email me, josh@simplifyingjujitsu.com, or you can message me on Instagram, and of course, follow me on Instagram at @thejoshmckinney. So today we're going to get into these ideas on distance management. I really, really get a lot of depth into it, so I'm not going to over-explain it now. Let's go ahead and hear a word from our sponsor, and then we will jump into the podcast. Hey guys, Josh here. I just wanted to tell you really quick about something that we are doing at simplifyingjujitsu.com. We are doing a partnership with the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show. Yes, my two babies, my two projects are partnering together. They are collabing for something really cool. And we are doing a monthly discount on a product from simplifyingjujitsu.com. And so if you guys don't know what Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu is, this is the video production company my father and my brown belt Logan and I started, where we decided that jiu-jitsu instructionals are too complex, and we wanted to make them simpler and easier to understand. And we also wanted to have the ability to update them at will. And so that is the coolest part about that, is this month I am selling the Duck Guard. This is my latest instructional. It's also my favorite instructional I have ever done by far, because it's a position that I invented. And what we're doing is 40% off of the Duck Guard with promo code BJJ sucks. And so you can go to simplifyingjujitsu.com and look at the Duck Guard, check it out, see if you can break people's ankles using the duck guard. And that is going to be 40% off. And this offer ends on February 3rd, which just so happens to be my father's 62nd birthday. I wonder what what Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu DVD we're going to be selling next on a discount. I don't know. Stay tuned, guys. I came to a realization not very long ago in Jiu-Jitsu where I started to understand that distance management and time management, they're very, very important in how they're related to each other. So the simplest way that I can explain this, and there is going to be a group of people who have never heard Jiu-Jitsu explained this way. Most likely, you will be a competitive team, train at a competitive gym, competition-oriented gym. People that know about self-defense know about this. People that have done striking arts know about this. But a lot of people in Jiu-Jitsu don't know about this, and they don't understand it. And it's distance management. What is distance management? What is the point of managing the distance? I think the simplest example is this. When you are on top, disconnected, so usually you're trying to pass if you're disconnected on top. Your opponent's either seated or on their back, but let's say seated. I think that this is one of the simplest ways to understand this. So if I walk towards my opponent and begin trying a knee cut, and I'm going at 1 mile an hour, well, I'm moving at 1 mile an hour. That is how quick my knee cut is going to be. We're not talking about speed. We're talking about timing. So if I go to my knee cut, though, while I am walking towards you at 1 mile an hour, and you are scooting away from me at 1 mile an hour, well, I'm not going to get close enough. I'm not going to be able to cover distance. So my timing is going to be horrible. Even if I was close enough, if I'm moving forward at 1 mile an hour and you are scooting back at 1 mile an hour, guess what's going to happen? We're going to be moving at the same speed. I am not going to get my guard pass. I need to get chest over chest. I need to get through your legs. And to do that, I need to control the distance better. Now, let's look at the third scenario. And this is the one that is the most important scenario to understand to use distance management as offense. You are chasing me. You're still sitting on your butt. I'm still trying to pass, but maybe I'm circling a lot. Maybe I'm going in and out a lot. But what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to convince you to chase me, okay? We've kept everything at 1 mile an hour, so why change it here? You start scooting towards me at 1 mile an hour. I start scooting away at 1 mile an hour. Guess what happens? No one catches anyone. But if I can convince you to continue to chase me at 1 mile an hour, and I shift my weight, I shift my speed, I shift where I am going, I change my direction, and I start to come forward at 1 mile an hour. Now you are scooting towards me at 1 mile an hour, and I'm scooting towards you at 1 mile an hour. So now I have essentially doubled my speed because now I'm going to my knee cut, right? You needed to control the distance better if you were playing guard, right? Understanding where you need to control distance better is going to come from a deeper understanding of jiu-jitsu. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But when you're playing guard, when you're disconnected in guard, the worst thing that could happen is they get too close to you too quickly, right? Because if that happens, they're going to start passing. They have gravity on their side, and they are going to be going through your legs if they get too close to you too quickly. And so understanding how to manage distance is going to be one of the most surprisingly important principles that a lot of jiu-jitsu people know, but a lot of jiu-jitsu people don't. And if you use it to your advantage, we're going to talk about using it in competition. We're going to talk about just how to use it and how to train it. But if you use it to your advantage, it's really hard to beat you. If you dominate the distance, if you control the distance, this is how I usually explain it when I am doing women's self-defense seminars. I don't do those as much anymore. I used to do them. But something we would talk about, actually, this is what the entire seminar was. If you guys know how I teach, I like to have a principle that I'm teaching and not say, okay, here's a list of 10 moves. But basically we say, hey, we're going to work on the principle of distance management today. Here are 10 techniques. Here are 10 expressions of my understanding of distance management. And yes, you'll learn 10 techniques. You'll learn 10 different moves, but hopefully you'll actually learn how to manage the distance, because that is by far more important, because you are going to use this idea of managing distance with every move that you do, because the distance is very important. The example that I give when I'm doing these self-defense seminars is this. Someone, an attacker, they could hurt me if I'm standing about 2 feet away from them, right? Because they could hit me. And then what we do is we show how to cover the head, and we show how to get on the inside, so not be at the end of someone's punches, and how to do that with timing, and how to do that with taking steps backwards and taking steps forward. But then I give the example, the obnoxious example of distance management, where I have my same uke and I say, okay, I want you to throw a punch, and I move back like 10, 15, 20 feet. I go, now punch me from there. And they can't, right? Because I have excessively dominated the distance. You could be the best puncher in the world, but if I dominate the distance that way, it's not going to matter, right? So you could have the best techniques of punches, but without distance management, it does not matter. Of course, if you are the best puncher in the world, you do have an understanding, whether you know it or not, of distance management, and you wouldn't throw a punch on me from 20 feet away. But you get the idea, you get the example. So when we're doing a principle like distance management, generally, we are going to apply this to like every single technique that we do. Because sometimes distance management is from mount when we're on top. Somebody is just being too explosive, and I need to get closer to them. If I have my chest off their chest, their bridge and roll is too powerful and it knocks me over. So what I do, what we call like airplane base, I bring my arms out nice and wide, and I bring my chest on their chest. That is also distance management. It is not just disconnected. So when we are thinking about managing the distance, I'm going to go on a tangent here because I said the word thinking, and I've been needing to go on this tangent on the show. How we think about jiu-jitsu, most important thing, okay? Before anything else, how we think about jiu-jitsu is the most important thing, because how we think about it is how we're going to train it, right? For example, if you think about it negatively, if you think about jiu-jitsu as something you have to do, guess what? Even the most consistent people, even the most mentally tough people, their rhythm is going to get upset sometimes, right? You're going to get COVID. You're going to be out for 2 weeks. You're going to be out for 4 weeks. You're going to hurt your knee. You're going to be out for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Your rhythm is going to get disrupted. Your consistency is going to get disrupted. And if jiu-jitsu is not enjoyable, you won't go back. If it is something you have to do, if it is just a workout, you won't go back. And maybe you will the first time or the second time. But if you are not enjoying it, you're going to quit doing it. That is how we are with everything. That's just how humans are. My motto for the year, I have like 4 or 5, but one of my mottos for the year, I don't know where I came up with the idea of doing mottos for the year, not doing like goals or stuff. I did goals too. But anyway, did mottos. One of my big mottos is think fun first. So when we are thinking about techniques to do, don't let what is the most important technique in jiu-jitsu be your first thought. Yes, that is an important thought, and that is a thought that you should have. But the thought of think fun first, if you said, okay, what techniques do I love to do? What techniques do I enjoy? What techniques spark joy in my mind? What techniques make me excited? What techniques, when I once every 6 months hit it, I think about it for the rest of the week? Those are the techniques to think about. Those are the techniques to get good at. Why? Because if you can continue to have fun, you will continue to motivate yourself exponentially more than if you don't have fun. I'll talk more about thinking and about mindset because I probably have 10 episodes I could do that are on how we think. But we'll get back to distance management. I needed to say that so I could explain how we're going to think about it, because that is the most important thing, right? Every business you've ever seen, everything that there is started as a thought. It started as an idea. Every technique in jiu-jitsu started as a thought. It started as an idea. Even if it was reverse engineered, even if we said, man, this is happening, this position is happening, we still have to think through it. How we think is so important. So how we are going to think about managing distance. I think it's really fun to do jiu-jitsu principles like this. This is coming from my weird thought process lately that you can see jiu-jitsu in everything. If you guys have noticed on the podcast, obviously you should have on the last 2 episodes because I talked about the blitz and the prevent. I've been doing a lot of football references on the podcast. And it's not that I'm this crazy huge football fan. It's just, it's the playoffs. I pretty much watch the playoffs of whatever sport. When I say football, I mean American football. And they're in the playoffs, so I'm watching it, right? And I'm interested in it. And of course, I'm looking for jiu-jitsu in it. Where do I see strategy? Where do I see distance management? An interesting thought on distance management, looking at the angles that defenders try to tackle the quarterback. How important the quarterback's movement is, where they take a 5-step drop, meaning they take 5 steps back. And as the defenders go to tackle them, then they take 2 or 3 steps forward so they don't get clipped. All they do is understand that angle. And you see guys that are Tom Brady, that are 44 years old, getting chased by the best athletes on the planet. Literally, the biggest, strongest, fastest people on the planet. And with a good rhythm of 7 steps, they can't knock him over. By taking 5 steps back and 2 steps forward at the right time, they can't knock him over. It's a really interesting thought, right? How can we apply that to jiu-jitsu? Well, I think one of the best ways to think about strategy in general is think about it if you really needed it. Not like think about like there's somebody who's trying to murder you or something like that. But I mean, think about if you really needed strategy to win a match or to win a round. How would you use distance management to beat someone, let's say, who is bigger, faster, stronger, and more flexible? Well, we could try to wear them out. Why, with all strategies have we talked about, why have they all been about wearing the person out? Something I talked about on the episode that's coming out in, I almost said last week's episode, the episode that's coming out on Suck Less Saturday, this Saturday, is the idea, the how to wear out your opponent, how to look at your opponent before a match and say, what do they have? What do I have? How can I use what I have to beat what they have? Well, generally, we think about weaknesses. I think that is, when you're thinking about attacking something, you are thinking about weaknesses. Now, here's a question. can you expose strengths as weaknesses? So there's a saying that oftentimes our greatest strengths are our greatest weaknesses. For example, Josh is super creative. When I lock him in a room, he doesn't have to think about a podcast. He can just talk about distance management. Now, that is one of my greatest strengths. How it can be a weakness is one, I could overuse it. I could overthink about it and say, okay, I can just it's easy for me to just come up with a podcast off the top of my head. So what should I do? I'll just do that every time. I won't have to plan on this. I won't have to think about it. Well, guess what? Now, this great strength that I have is causing me to not focus on my podcast, to not focus on the thing that I should be focused on. I'm probably going to struggle there. People that are great people, meaning like somebody you hang around that everybody loves. A lot of times, not always, but oftentimes, their great strength, they have to really keep track of it because people just naturally love them. They just naturally respect them. So it's going to be easy to manipulate people. You're going to get addicted to it, right? Now let's relate that to Jiu Jitsu. Your greatest strength, let's say it's strength. Well, if I can get you to use your greatest strength, being you are stronger than everybody that you go with, without using a ton of my strength, guess what's going to happen? Your great strength, if you don't submit me in 2 or 3 minutes and you are using how strong you are, that is your game plan, you're going to get tired. And then your greatest strength is literally now your weakness. Your greatest strength caused you to have bad cardio. So we can convince people to rely too much on physical attributes, and managing distance is one of the best ways to do that. And what I like to think about for this idea of managing distance, I just did on the podcast, or not on the podcast, on the Patreon page, I did a breakdown of Jeff Glover versus Caio Terra 1. And something, if you guys want to know everything I point out in this one, because I only point out strategy in that. It's like a 20-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute breakdown. And I just explain what strategy is being used, in my opinion, right? Because you can't actually know what strategy is being used. So something that was happening, though, a lot was Jeff Glover dominated the distance. How he did it was he never let Caio Terra get under his hips when he was on top. That is a really simple way. So, for example, as Caio Terra would start to dig under for X guard, Jeff Glover would just jump away from him. He would say, we are now too deep into jiu-jitsu. I can no longer manage the distance. I need to roll. I need to jump. I need to escape this position. A lot of times what he did to manage distance is he fell to his butt, made sure he stayed under both of Caio's legs. And then when Caio would try to come up, Jeff would come up on a single leg. He managed the distance. That's not a specific technique. Falling over is not technique, right? It's a principle. He just said, right now I'm losing the distance battle, so I'll just create more distance. That's one of the simplest ways to get back when you're losing. Now I create so much distance that it frustrates you. What are you going to do? You're going to start coming forward more. Well, guess what? You're no longer creating angles. I kind of have you in my fight. If I can convince you, hey, there's too much distance, you got to chase me. You've got to run with me. The first time I ever experienced this is when I fought Renato Canuto. I think I've referenced this on the show. Man, he beat the crap out of me. He wouldn't let me touch him. And every time, I remember saying right after I got off the mat, it was literally like trying to grab smoke when I was fighting Renato. He would not let me touch him. And then guess what I finally did? I finally chased him. I overreached. I said, I can just grab this guy. Once I get him, I'll be able to do jiu-jitsu to him. But I never touched him. And he convinced me that he was going to scoot back like he did every time. And right when I overextended, he came forward. He actually kicked both of my ankles out passed my guard into mount for 3 seconds as I bellied down and then took my back. And so it was like 13 points in a 10-second window of the match. And it was simply because he dominated the distance. Obviously, he's super good. He was a brown belt world champion at the time. It was my first brown belt match. Obviously, he was good. But where he dominated me was not technique. It was simply distance management. If we look at him fighting Levi Jones-Leary has one of the best guards in jiu-jitsu. I mean, at Worlds this year. We look at them fighting. What did Hanato do really well? He dominated the distance. I think he got a takedown. He either got a takedown or an advantage. He might have only gotten an advantage for a double guard pull. But Levi couldn't even pull guard on him. It was such a battle just to get to guard because Hanato dominated the distance. And so often we think that it's another technique that we need, but sometimes it's just a little bit deeper of an understanding of jiu-jitsu. Something I did a seminar this weekend, and something I was telling the people about was how I think about understanding jiu-jitsu and the importance of using the word understanding. The language we use is incredibly important. Don't say, I know an armbar. Say, I have an understanding of the armbar. But you don't know the armbar, because you either know or you don't. You could know the armbar, but not really know the armbar. But you have a subtle understanding of it. Now you have a deep understanding. You know what matters and what doesn't in the armbar. That is a deep understanding. You know more about getting there than other people. You have a deep understanding. When we are doing techniques are just expressions of our understanding of jiu-jitsu. Okay? How I explain it is, if we're in a big room and there are 100 white belts and there is one black belt, and I show an ankle lock, I would bet any amount of money that the black belt would be able to do it faster than anyone, would understand it more, and would hit it live much more than anyone else. Why is that? Is it because you just learned jiu-jitsu faster? No. It's because, whether conscious or subconscious, that black belt has an understanding of leg locks, has an understanding of controlling the legs. Hopefully it's conscious, right? Because if it's conscious, then what took them 10 to 12 years to learn, they will be able to explain it to their students, and their students can start to think about it, and they'll be able to learn it way easier, way quicker. So that's really the argument for principle-based jiu-jitsu. You are looking at how much you understand things, not just what techniques you know, how much you understand managing the distance. I am giving you guys the way I understand distance management, the way I see distance management. But literally, I could tell one of my white belts this, and we could have a conversation about it, and then watch everybody in the gym start to roll. And my white belt may point out things about distance management that I never thought of, because it's just a different perspective. I'm giving you guys my perspective every time I'm on the show. That's all I'm ever doing. It comes off matter of fact because, well, I'm in a room by myself. That's how you're going to talk when you're in a room by yourself, right? It pretty matter of fact, pretty direct. But it's always just my opinion. It is just the way that I view jiu-jitsu. That is really all I'm trying to do lately on the podcast, is just give you a different perspective. And so that's why I haven't had any new people on the show lately. I actually have a few episodes recorded, of interviews, but I just haven't done them because I've just been enjoying trying to give a perspective on strategy and on using the principles of jiu-jitsu as strategies, or using understanding the principles of jiu-jitsu as strategies. And so for me, I think that is going to be where the podcast goes eventually. We're going to go back to some interviews soon because I have other people that will shed really fresh perspectives on strategy, on distance management. I just think for me, I have probably looked into it a lot more than a lot of people. So I wanted to just do a group of episodes where I'm just talking about all these different strategies. And we just have a few more left. I really wanted to talk in the next one about how to think about strategies, just the entire episode, just how to think about them and how to think about skills in jiu-jitsu, really just how to think about jiu-jitsu. And I think that's where we'll go, but we'll see what comes out next week. I'm not totally sure. But back to just a few more thoughts on distance management. First, how do you train it? How do we start out with training the distance? Well, the first thing we do is we notice it. We look at it. We see if we can see it. We see if we can see distance management in action, whether in jiu-jitsu or whether in a street fight that we see on the side of the road. We watch it. We look at it from the best perspective that we can. And we say, is there distance management there? Who is controlling the distance? Just look at that. Watch around and say, I don't care who's winning this round, who's controlling the distance. I guarantee you most of those rounds, the person that controls the distance is the one winning the round. This is the most important thing. I want to be close to you when you don't want me to be, and I want to be far from you when you want to be close to me. That is distance management. First, try to see it in action. Then try to come up with some ideas on how you could get better at it. One of the biggest things, one of the simplest things you can do is learn it from the feet. A lot of these principles, I guess every principle that we've done that I've talked about with blitzing, with prevent, with all these things, and now with distance management, we've talked about doing them from the feet, starting with them from the feet. And I think it's because you can see them in action a lot easier from the feet. And I understand that most jiu-jitsu people have much less understanding from the feet than they do on the ground, right? So you get to go into something where you probably have a little bit fresher of an idea, fresher of a perspective, because you're not weighed down by being good at it, right? You probably suck from the feet if you do jiu-jitsu. Most people do. But you get to see these principles in action instead of just saying it's about my technique, right? And so learning to manage distance, though, it can be done almost as a dance. It could be done at first saying, okay, I'm going to take a step to the right. You're going to take a step to the left. I'm going to take a step to the right. You're going to take a step to the left. I'm going to back up. I'm going to see how I can get close. All you're trying to do is learn the timing of when you would shoot. My wrestling coach, Eric, he's been on the podcast a few times. He will say things to me like, you suck and I hate you. That's irrelevant. I was just bringing that up. He'll also say things to me like, stop focusing so much on the shot. Because a lot of times that's what we're taught. We're taught, okay, this is how you shoot a double leg. And they focus so much on the technique. We get so excited about the shot. We don't learn to hand fight. We don't learn to make them take a step forward while we take a step forward so we can get our shot. We don't learn that. We just learn the shot. So a lot of times focusing too much on that causes you to never hit the shot. You can take a sucky shot at the right time and hit it, and you can take a great shot at the wrong time and miss it, right? How do we stop that shot? We talked about it last week when we were talking about the prevent idea. If you guys did not listen to the part 1 and part 2, where we talked about blitzing and prevent, I really think you are missing out. This week we have the podcast that's coming out on the Patreon page is about how to combine them and how to think about the two of them. There's one secret about the prevent and the blitz and how to approach it that I did not tell you guys. And so, or on the two main episodes, I did not tell you guys. I've never, ever hidden a secret piece of information, but I really want you guys to check out the Patreon page, because if you like the podcast, I guarantee you are going to love the Patreon page. It's a lot more off the rails and it's a lot more exciting. And also, I feel a little more comfortable because it's a group of paid people who want to hear my stuff. I know they're used to the way that I think and the way that I approach things. And I know that most likely they are a lot less offendable. And so I get to be a little more offensive on those shows and tell you guys about things that I would not say on the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show. And so, yeah, you guys should absolutely check that out. But we were talking about distance management with prevent, right? Controlling the distance with prevent. This is something when I was coaching last weekend. We went to Kansas City and I had a group of my students compete. It was a blast too. My students did really well. It was one of just like the best displays of jiu-jitsu that group of people I think I've ever seen out of basically all of them. So that was really exciting. It was a really promising thing. Something that happens when you get in the moment. I know that I just jumped from thought to thought there, but I am doing that. Something that happens when you get in the moment is you, in your coaching, is you just say things that you don't even think about. And something I started saying when my students were winning and there were 40 seconds left. Really, really simple. Control the distance. Control the distance. Don't worry about the techniques that you're using. Just don't let them be so close to you that they can use theirs. Control the distance, right? The prevent idea says control the distance and protect your control space, right? Protect the back of your neck when they try to collar tie you. Protect the bend of your knee when they go to their single leg. Protect your armpit space, but do it by dominating distance control. You are going to be able to protect things so much more. And so now, how do we run away from someone and dominate them at the same time? How do we run away from somebody and attack them at the same time? Well, it is simple. It is timing. I remember the first time I had ever heard the idea of the importance of timing was Brad Peplow was teaching a seminar. It was in like Champaign, Illinois. And Brad is, I think he's a 3rd degree black belt now, maybe 3rd degree black belt now. But he was just teaching some De La Riva stuff. It's a position I think he still teaches to this day. He calls it the mother load. You guys got to listen to this dude teach it. He gets pumped about it, but he was talking about timing. And he said, the biggest difference between a black belt and a blue belt is not the techniques that they know. It is when they go for them. It is the timing of them. If I would have understood that as deeply as I do now, I would have been much better at jiu-jitsu. But it's hard to understand that. It's hard to understand. No, it feels like it's technique. It feels like it's technique. It really isn't. Go for a cross collar choke on me from your close guard. Go for it on me from on bottom and mount. The technique's the same. The timing's different. We're in a different position. You went for it at the wrong time. Hinner and Huron talk about it like you're catching a bus. If you show up early, the bus isn't going to be there. If you show up late, the bus is already gone. That is how to understand timing. That is how to understand distance, right? Those two things go hand in hand. When we're thinking about distance management, we're thinking about, of course, first, the round as a whole. I've referenced this on the podcast a lot. This is one of my newer knowledge I've been using way too much. But pretend you were painting a whole picture when you were in a round, right? The 5-minute round isn't just one technique. It's a bunch of techniques. It's a bunch of things happening. Think of it as a whole. So when we're managing distance, we're managing it for a reason, because at minute 4, I'm going to start bringing the heat. I'm going to start blitzing. And guess what's going to happen? Hopefully they're going to be tired. Hopefully I managed the distance correctly and they're tired because I thought of the round as a whole. I thought of jiu-jitsu as a whole. Remember, everything is jujitsu. There is some jujitsu in anything. Look for it. Try to think of these things as a whole also. So when we're looking at the round, we're thinking of our whole round and we're saying, okay, this guy always beats the crap out of me. He always submits me 2 or 3 times in the beginning of the round. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm not going to sweep him. I'm not going to do anything. All I'm going to do is try to survive. I'm going to make sure that there is movement being created. Sometimes people think of survival as lay flat on your back and try to cover both of your lapels. It's not survival, right? Because it takes a lot of strength to do it, and the person can continue to advance the position. Just try to scoot away from them. Just keep scooting away. I remember one of my blue belts now, when he was a white belt, learned the guillotine. It was like his favorite thing. And one day we were going, and how he was looking for the guillotine is he just kept scooting away from me. And I'm a black belt. I'm pretty good at jiu-jitsu. Technically speaking, I know 1 million things more than him at the time. But he was dominating distance control, and it kept forcing my head down. And he kept going to attack the guillotine. Of course, at those points, I was able to defend the guillotine because I have 50 pounds on him and I'm a black belt. But I'm getting put in a position that I don't want to be, or that I don't want to be in, simply because this guy's just managing the distance better. He's just frustrating me. I'm the black belt. I should be beating you. I'm going to chase you now. And guess what? Everything's slowing down for him because as I'm chasing him, he's scooting away. So he's cutting into my speed that I can create forward. And my head's falling. I'm getting guillotined. And it's frustrating, right? I'm going to go harder. I'm going to wear myself out more now. That's how you have to think about jiu-jitsu as a whole picture. How can I wear this person down? How can I look at those physical attributes that they have and use distance management, use prevent, use timing, use the blitz? How can I use these things to take away those physical attributes, to dominate them? That's where I'm going to leave you guys on that. That is my big thought on distance management, but wanted to just drop a challenge for you guys. We're almost to February. And if you guys are listening to this in the beginning of 2022, this challenge is for you. Let's continue to focus on our mindset in jiu-jitsu. Let's continue to be intentional with jiu-jitsu. Go into train tonight. Give yourself 1 minute, literally 60 seconds, whether in the locker room, whether on the mat. Give yourself 1 minute where you check your thought process. You remind yourself why you're there: to get good at jiu-jitsu, to lose weight, to get a good workout in, to do whatever you are there for, to learn better ankle locks, to add a cross collar choke. Make sure that you think about that before class starts. That's my challenge this whole year. Be mindful of your jiu-jitsu and see your jiu-jitsu explode without you having to just ask a bunch of questions and you having to get frustrated about it. Just go to the gym and remind yourself. Just say, what am I here for? Okay, I'm going to do it. This is a practice from Sean Williams, and I started it maybe 6 months ago. And it has made, it's made a difference in my teaching. It's made a difference in it's made a difference in my mindset for jiu-jitsu, but especially it has made a difference in my technique, because every night I go in, and some nights I am literally going to the gym and I say, hey, this was not a very fun day. This is my happy place. I am literally only here for enjoyment. I am only here to have a good time and to be a good training partner. And so I might just let people beat the heck out of me one day because they're working something, they're working a specific pass. I'm just a body to them, but I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm there to have fun. Make sure that you check your mindset before class. That is the challenge for the rest of this year, for the rest of your jiu-jitsu, to be honest. And I'll remind you guys of this as we keep going throughout this year, because I'm going to keep doing it. And I assume I'm going to keep getting huge gains from it. And as I do that, I'm going to keep telling you guys about it. So that is all I have for you guys. Let's take it over. Let's take it back to Josh to give us the outro. Take it away, Josh. And that is the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I always love talking about distance management. I always feel like when I'm talking about a principle, it takes me longer to warm up in the content part of the episode because it just takes a while to start to get your mind thinking about the principle, right? We're talking about mindfulness just a second ago. When you're being mindful, when you are trying to learn something, just thinking about it a bunch is one of the best ways to get into it, right? You can hear it in how I'm talking about it on the podcast. My ideas, my thoughts on it keep coming as I talk about them more, as we give more examples, right? It's not like I had pre-thought about any of the examples that I gave on this episode, right? I just started talking about them. I started thinking about them, and then they get a little more in depth, and they get a little more in depth. And then there comes a point of diminishing return where I end the episode, where you go, man, what the heck is Josh talking about here? And I'm thinking, what the heck am I talking about here? And well, that's the point of diminishing return. That's when I've obsessed about it. And so see if you can podcast your way to jiu-jitsu, right? See if you can talk through and think through your ideas. And if that helps you in jiu-jitsu. Just really trying to look at this year, ways to look at jiu-jitsu that other people may have not thought of, maybe nobody has thought of, because I really believe that we are on the cusp of just a point in jiu-jitsu where we learn differently, where people find a much quicker way to be a black belt. Not to have a black belt, but to actually be a black belt. People find a way to do it quicker. I really think that's a possibility. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm not. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Of course, if you guys have not signed up for the Patreon page, you absolutely need to. It is patreon.com/ISuckAtBJJ. And this week I have a good episode about how to relate blitzing and prevent, and how to tie it into timing and distance. Basically everything that we have talked about over the last 3 weeks, I am going to try to tie in together, talk about them all at once, and how to look at them, how to combine them, and how to use them against each other. And so, check out the Patreon page if you have not already. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope today's episode helps you guys get better at managing distance. I hope it helps you learn how to manage distance from people you don't like, and you just don't have to be around them ever. And most importantly, I hope today's episode helps you suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. See you later, guys. Hey, what are you guys still doing here? I don't really have any more content planned. I guess I can tell you about some of the other cool stuff that I have going on. If you guys don't know, I have a production company called SimplifyingJujitsu.com, and we do once a month a deal of the month through through the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. That's exciting news, I guess. You could also go to SimplifyingJujitsu.com and get my free ebook, Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu, where we break down the 5 essential positions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What that means is we make Jiu-Jitsu feel a lot smaller, feel like there is a lot less that you don't know. And that ebook only takes about an hour to read, and there is a audio copy of it too. So if you go and put in your email, you will get the ebook, and you'll be able to listen to it on audio, read to you in my best Barry White voice. No, it's really not. It's just in my normal voice, but read to you by me. And that will make you better at jiu-jitsu. It also has some simple ideas, some simple thoughts on training method. Right now, I'm also in the middle of, please don't tell anybody, writing a brand new ebook called Understanding Jiu-Jitsu. And this is going to look at strategy. It's going to look at training method. It's going to basically look at everything that we talk on the podcast. And it's going to make a really, really understandable, digestible, simple version of this. This is going to just be like if you could compress all 112 episodes of the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show into a book, into a very simple and easy to read and enjoyable to read book. Because of course, at Simplifying Jiu Jitsu and on the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu show, we think fun first. And that's what we're doing with this ebook. I don't have a date for when this ebook is going to come out, but it's funny because if you already have the simplifyingjujitsu.com email, besides Patreon listeners, you will be the first person to know about this specific book coming out. And so when it's out, you'll know about it. If you are on simplifyingjujitsu.com and you get on the email list by downloading your free copy of Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu, or if you're on the Patreon page, you will also hear about it. So that's all I have for you guys today. Now, seriously, turn off the podcast. I don't have anything else to say.